Hello, welcome to Life Matters. I'm your host, Brendan O'Connell. Well, during the past 8 weeks or so, each week we're seeing a video that put out by the Center for Medical Progress, a group I'd never heard of, but they had gone undercover and went and found out that Planned Parenthood is selling baby body parts to medical research organizations. Now, whether they use the term sell or not, they've always been into legerdemain when it comes to words. But we're going to talk today with probably the most informed individual of Planned Parenthood, who's been following them closely for 30 years, I would say, and has a terrific Wednesday newsletter on Planned Parenthood called STOP, S-T-O-P-P .com, I believe. And his name is Jim Sedlak. He's the Vice President of American Life League. Well, welcome, Jim Sedlak.
Well, Brendan, it's great to be here.
Well, Jim, I was wondering, can you tell us a little bit about the whole pro-life community? And, of course, the national media, it made a big splash the first week, but the national media has tried to squelch it. What is it about these videos? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the first one and then subsequent videos. There's been 8 in all. I know Planned Parenthood tried to they first said, oh, well, it's heavily edited, but in reality they said, well, here's the whole tape. And so they haven't said that for the last 7. And can you tell us a little bit about these tapes and this organization?
Sure. The whole basis of this is that it has been found out that there is a thriving industry in the United States of people who procure parts of babies that have been killed by abortion and then use them in research for various reasons across the nation. Some private research facilities, some universities that do it. And the chain of events is that there are the abortion facilities where the actual abortion take place, and then the parts of the babies are divided, and there are procurement companies that procure those parts from the abortion facilities and then provide them to the research facilities. So it's a 3-step process. There's the people who do the abortions, there's the people who procure the parts and act as the middlemen, and then there are the research facilities that eventually get the parts. And what happened is this group called the Center for Medical Progress was formed specifically to pose as a procurement company, a company that wanted to obtain these parts. And they went in a 3-year study with undercover video. They visited several Planned Parenthood facilities and tried to arrange to purchase parts from Planned Parenthood, parts of aborted babies. And they took these undercover videos, and Planned Parenthood was very happy to talk to them, very happy to offer them parts, haggled a little bit over the price as to whether it would cost $50 for each part or whether it would be $75 or whatever the dollar amount would be. And once they had a sufficient amount of tape to be able to show that what was going on at Planned Parenthood, they started releasing the videos. Now, it's important for your audience to know that although it is legal in the United States for a woman having an abortion to donate the parts of the baby for research, it is illegal for the abortion organization, in this case Planned Parenthood, to make a profit from providing those parts. They're allowed to recover a nominal charge for each abortion, so to cover their costs of retrieving and shipping the parts, but that's it. They're not allowed to make any kind of a profit on it. And the other part of federal law is that they are not allowed to change the abortion procedure to get specific parts. In other words, if their normal abortion procedure would wind up in, say, the heart being destroyed, and a researcher wanted an intact heart, they're not allowed by federal law to change their procedure and to do the abortion in such a way that the heart would be intact. And what the videos have shown is that, number one, Planned Parenthood is more than happy to sell these parts at a profit. In fact, Planned Parenthood has just admitted today in a letter to Congress that their centers typically get $55 to $60 a part for the aborted baby parts. Now, when we say a part, what we're talking about is the researchers want livers, they want lungs, they want hearts, they want limbs. There's a whole set of different parts. And so from one baby, there could be 5, 10 different parts, and Planned Parenthood is collecting $60 a part. So they could get $600 in parts for an abortion that they also charged a woman, $600 to do. And so there's profit here, which is against the law. And so people are upset as these videos have come out, and the videos are not only with people at Planned Parenthood, but in order to entice this new procurement company, the videos are also of a major other procurement company that Planned Parenthood sells parts to, and their officials talking about it because they can't provide all the parts. So they didn't see any problem with a new procurement company coming in. So
and what was the name of that company?
That was called STEM Express.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and it turns out that an abortionist who works at Planned Parenthood is also the medical director of STEM Express. So it wasn't some independent group. It's actually Planned Parenthood has ties to the STEM Express company. And so this whole sale of baby body parts, and some of the videos, not all the videos are graphics, but some of the videos show the parts of aborted baby after the abortion with all of the parts in a on a plate, and people picking it up with tweezers and say this is a heart and this is a lung, etc. So it's very disturbing from that aspect. But what has got the general public, we think, most upset is simply the callous nature of the Planned Parenthood people talking about this. They talked about this with no more emotion than you might talk about buying a new carburetor for your car or something like that. These are just body parts to them. They're parts, and they sell them, and they take them out, and they deal with them, and et cetera. And there is no emotion whatsoever. Several of the videos have the Planned Parenthood people sitting there drinking wine, eating lunch, and discussing tearing babies apart.
And wasn't one of the recent videos talk about that there is a lot of profit in this, and you can see, they're charging for an abortion, now they're charging for the parts of a baby, which really is really the height of depravity, I would think, amongst a moral society. I think the videos would display that. How is Planned Parenthood fending off their detractors, which I guess are a lot right now?
Well, Planned Parenthood is of course, as you mentioned, they're claiming that these videos are edited and that they don't present the complete picture. Of course, what happened is they went in a particular meeting, maybe they took 5 hours of video. Well, they're not going to release 5 hours of video because nobody is going to watch all of that. So they edited it down to 5 minutes or 6 or 7 minutes, and they released that. But at the same time, they also released the 5 hours on their website, so if anybody wants to go watch all of that, they can. But Planned Parenthood has been yelling and screaming about it being edited, that it's only a small part of their business. Planned Parenthood, whenever you catch them in something, it's only a small part of their business. In a letter to Congress today, actually, Planned Parenthood said, well, it's only 2 of our 59 affiliates that are involved in this, and therefore it is a very, very low percentage of our affiliates that are involved in this. But then if you go on and you read about a page later in the same letter, they said, well, at the time the first video was released, we had 6 affiliates involved in this, but 4 of them have stopped doing it now, so don't count them.
You mean just, since the first video came out 7 or 8 weeks ago, 4?
Yes.
4 have stopped, but they're saying only 2 are involved now?
Yeah, now they're saying only 2 involved because those other 4 just stopped, Yeah. They've been doing it for years, but they've stopped now, so don't count them, They're scrambling to, they hired a top-notch public relations firm, and obviously they're getting all kinds of advice as to, what they got to do. They got to play it down. They got to claim that the videos are edited. They got to claim that they were altered, because there's no real answer to this. The answer is Planned Parenthood is making lots of money. In the latest video that was released, which was just a couple of days ago, on Tuesday of this week, the woman from STEM Express actually said that she doesn't know a clinic anywhere involved in providing parts that isn't making money from it.
Wow.
And was very surprised at any hint that some clinics don't make money from it. But the other interesting thing is that when these videos first came out, they had documentation from STEM Express that had with a brochure that STEM Express gives to the Planned Parenthood clinics and other clinics, really saying and emphasizing how much profit they're going to make. And this week, STEM Express changed their website and took out all references to profit off their website.
Wow.
As if it didn't exist. Of course, in today's technology, there are ways on the internet to get copies of what the website looked like last week, and so it's very obvious, the changes they made. But they're just scrambling to try to say anything they can to get the American public not to believe it, so that, they can survive however long, 3 months, 6 months, whatever, and keep their funding and keep spending $500 million of taxpayer money.
Wow. Now, 15 years ago, Planned Parenthood was selling baby body parts. In fact, the Life Dynamics, that's the group I was trying to think of earlier, they've done this kind of work in the past, but this letting out a video a week for 8 consecutive weeks now. I don't know how many weeks they'll be going, but it's been a very effective strategy. Are they freezing the body parts when they transmit them from the abortuary and they bring them over to the place where they're doing medical research?
No, that what they say is they can't freeze them because if they freeze them, they lose all the value. So they chill them. They keep them in a chilled container so they don't go bad. But they make sure that they're not frozen in any way. And they have. And in fact, what the videos are showing is that the procurement company, for example, STEM Express, actually has people on site at the abortion facility, and it is the procurement company that basically does all the work to take the aborted baby, get the parts out of it, package it up, and get it shipped immediately. And it's really Planned Parenthood isn't even doing that work, so they're getting $60 a part, and they're not even doing the work of extracting the parts and shipping them. The procurement company itself is doing that.
Wow. Now, there was this past weekend there was a large protest around the country. Can you speak to that at all about?
Absolutely, it was, and I'd have to say, driven by these videos and driven by the outrage. It turned out to be the largest single-day protest of Planned Parenthood in Planned Parenthood's history. Their organizers in American Life League and Stop International were both co-sponsors of this event, along with 60 other groups. When it was organized, it was hoped that maybe there would be 50 or 100 sites around the country that would have protests. The final numbers are that there were 342 different Planned Parenthood facilities that had protests in front of them. That's more than half of Planned Parenthood's total locations around the country, and that close to 70,000 people participated in these events. The biggest one was out in Minnesota, where they had 4,000 people at the one event, but there's been large numbers in a lot of other places around the country, and so we have almost 70,000 people out protesting Planned Parenthood last Saturday morning at 342 sites, over half their sites. They have 663 sites around the country. So it was just a massive outpouring of people who are upset at Planned Parenthood, and all of this happening when the major news media, the network television, ABC, NBC, CBS, et cetera, have basically ignored the whole thing.
It's really startling how they're really not reporting the news is what it comes down to, unless they must think that anything involving abortion is not news. That's one way they try to do it. So, and do you? I know in the past we've talked about the monies made that people really don't understand. This Planned Parenthood is a 501c3 organization, and yet they're getting $500 million of taxpayer money, roughly. They have a very liquid financial statement. Can you speak to that at all? I mean,
Sure. Let me take the Planned Parenthood every year releases an annual report for their last fiscal year. And the numbers from the last Planned Parenthood annual report say that it had a total income of $1.3 billion, not million, but $1 billion, and that of that, some $528 million came from the American taxpayer, and it had an overall profit of $127 million. So this is an organization that is just rolling in money, rolling in profits. We have been tracking Planned Parenthood's profits for 30 years. There has never been a year when Planned Parenthood hasn't made millions of dollars in profits. And this last year, with the $127 million, that was their second highest total in all the time we've been tracking them. So this is a 501c3, which means they don't pay income taxes, and which means people can deduct donations to them, but that doesn't mean they don't make money. They make millions, and they get millions in our taxpayer money.
Wow, that's... Is there anything that can they... I know that Congress has been starting to make overtures that they want to defund Planned Parenthood, along with all those people that were out in front of Planned Parenthood protesting. This was more of a protest group with signs and things of that nature. Is there anything that Congress is doing, and will Obama close down the government if Planned Parenthood is defunded?
Well, I think your listeners should know that the House of Representatives has voted several times over the last few years to take taxpayer money away from Planned Parenthood. But the Senate, actually, there was only one vote ever in the Senate and we got 42 of the senators, which means 42% of the votes, so it was not a majority.
Was that during the Harry Reid era, the Democrat Harry
Yes.
Reid? Because he didn't allow hardly any votes about anything the whole time he was
Right. Well, he didn't allow any votes about Planned Parenthood. There was only one that was taken. But we had one just a few weeks ago after these videos started to be released, and the pressure was too much. And in fact, in the one that we had 2 weeks ago, we got 54% of the Senate that voted to take taxpayer money away from Planned Parenthood. So a majority of the Senate has now joined a majority of the House. The problem in the Senate is that it takes 60 votes to stop a filibuster, and so they didn't have enough votes to stop a filibuster. So it never got a chance to pass because the Democrats were filibustering against it. But in fact, we do have now a majority of the House and a majority of the Senate who have said that they are opposed to Planned Parenthood funding and have voted that way. And the question is, can we get to the 60? And that, of course, is a political question. So it's a lot of pressure that has to be put on all the members of the Senate in order to get those last 6 votes in order to end the filibuster on it. And there's an opportunity that it may happen. Now, as far as closing down the government, I know there are some people in the Senate saying they will not approve any funding bill that has money for Planned Parenthood in it. In the past, Obama has said that he would rather close down the government than take a single penny away from Planned Parenthood. We have to remember that Planned Parenthood spent millions of dollars in each of Obama's 2 elections to get him elected. I believe he feels obligated to them, and so it's going to take a lot of pressure. Anything can happen.
And you'd have to override his veto. And I also have found out that really when they close down the government, they don't really close down the entire government. They close down a certain percentage, but it's not everybody. So it's somewhat of a mischaracterization in that regard. Well, Jim, you've been a veteran looking at Planned Parenthood for years, and what is it that we can do here in Boston or in any community throughout America to put pressure locally on Planned Parenthood?
Well, and I think that's what has to be done now. It has to be a lot of local pressure. Every place that Planned Parenthood has a clinic, people should be putting pressure on the local city or the local county, the local town, whatever the supervising agency is, to make sure that Planned Parenthood is not getting any taxpayer money in that city. They have to put pressure on the local schools to keep Planned Parenthood out of the schools, because that's where Planned Parenthood wants to be, getting the kids to be their future customers. People have to understand that 70% of Planned Parenthood customers are high school and college girls. They're not, some 30, 40, 50-year-old women. It's high school and college girls. That's their customer base. And they need to get into the schools. Particularly, they're focusing this year on the middle schools. So you got to get them out of the schools, and you got to take the local money away from them. And if you do that, you'll find your local clinic will close up, and every local clinic that closes up brings Planned Parenthood closer to demise. And, just to give you a number, back in 1995, Planned Parenthood had 938 clinics around the country. Today, they have 663, and they're closing more than they're opening every year.
Well, that's good to hear. Now, aren't they, though, moving towards a mega clinic business strategy?
Planned Parenthood typically, tries different strategies. A number of years ago, they had what they called their express clinics, where they were locating clinics in little strip shopping malls with the idea that they would feed them then to their regular clinics. They would send patients over. That was a total failure for them. They closed that down. They are building mega clinic, and mega clinic being defined as a clinic that has more than 10,000 square feet. And we think in the end there's about 18 of those now around the country, and we think that that's going to be another failure. We don't think that that's going to really be successful. Certain parts of the country it may be successful for them, but as an overall strategy, we don't think that that's going to work.
I see. And the last question I have is medical abortions with the RU-486. Do you see that trend continuing? Where it's
well, it is. It's interesting because there is RU-486 abortions taking place. There are some locations around the country that only do RU-486 abortions, that don't do surgical abortions, but 95% of those places are run by Planned Parenthood. Outside of Planned Parenthood, that's not a big thrust, but in Planned Parenthood, it's a major thrust to have locations that only do the what's called the medication abortions or the RU-486 abortions. And so we need to keep pressure on Planned Parenthood and all of these clinics.
Well, Jim, thank you so much. Our time has come to an end. I could ask you questions probably another 2 or 3 hours. I learned so much every time that I chat with you. And we hope our audience, too, learned a lot and found it unique, informative, content-rich, truthful, and thought-provoking. Thanks for watching. I'm Brendan O'Connell, your friend for life.